Hello, everybody, and welcome to a bonus video and podcast from MinMax. MinMax is a place about games, friends, and getting better. My name is Ben Hansen, and I'm joined by the leader of the Straw Hats himself, Kyle Hilliard, everybody.
Look at you knowing things.
Thank
Straw
you.
Hats.
Thank
It's the
you.
Straw Hat crew.
Kyle, if only you saw my list of notes here where I wrote down Straw Hats. Like, that is the level that I'm at. So this is a video all about me playing One Piece Odyssey, the upcoming turn-based RPG published by Bandai Namco. Don't forget that name, Kyle, please. I got to go on a trip recently to play the first 3 hours of this game or so. Now, the kicker is I don't know anything about One Piece. And I apologize.
I want to know how much of a zero you are at this thing, right?
Yeah. Well, before I do that, I should let you know, if you enjoy this channel or this video, you can always subscribe to MinMax's YouTube channel. Also, we'll have a podcast version. I'm sorry, Carl, are these plugs boring you?
No,
Okay.
please, plug away. Well, I was just rubbing my eyes.
Oh, God.
It's early. We're recording this early in the morning.
But also, we will have a podcast version of this discussion in our bonus podcast feed, so you can help support us by joining MinMax on Patreon at the $5 tier. You unlock the bonus podcast feed right in your favorite podcast app. It includes stuff like this, full podcast versions of The Deepest Dive, max spoilers, early access to the MinMax show. There's a ton of bonus content right there, and you have to listen through some Patreon app or nonsense. It's really just right... It's in your phone. It's right on your favorite podcast app. Ask anybody who's a supporter on Patreon. It's very easy. Okay, Kyle, my knowledge of One Piece before this, genuinely, it was Luffy, got that. Right. I know he's kind of like Elastigirl, right? I got that from The Incredibles. Is that not the case?
I'm trying to think. Well, yeah, I'm like in my head. I'm like, was he before Elastigirl?
I think he was before Elastigirl.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, he's a rubber man.
That's right. And then I realized at a certain point, like, oh, you know what my main point of reference is for One Piece is back in the Kaza days, maybe pre-Kaza, I was really into downloading AMVs because, very into Dragon Ball. Right. And there was, and so also like AFI was my favorite band. And so I was looking for AFI AMVs, and somebody edited AFI's cover of Last Caress, which I won't sing here. But AFI's cover of Last Caress, they edited some music video to One Piece, and I watched that conservatively 47 times.
Okay,
so,
now do you remember if the blonde guy that usually wears the suit, do you know if he appears
I don't
in
believe
that
so.
video?
I don't believe so.
Okay, all right, okay. Because I was going to ask if he's smoking a cigarette or eating a lollipop.
Is that his go-to?
Well, he smokes a cigarette, but there was a period of time where they really tried to bring One Piece to America, and it was like on Fox. And to get around him smoking a cigarette, he just always had a lollipop, and it was like a terrible edit. It did not work at all.
Just a smoking lollipop?
Yeah, or they tried to get rid of the smoke, and it looked rough, yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Now, is that Sanji? Is that his name?
Yes, good job.
Thank you.
You get a cigarette lollipop.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay, this isn't going to be a completely stupid take on One Piece Odyssey, I promise you, because Kyle knows a lot about One Piece, because we've been looking for an avenue to talk about One Piece for a while, because you've been devoting your life to this frickin' thing.
Yeah. My family, my wife's huge fan. Like, she's caught up, right? Which is like thousands of episodes. I've watched about 350. Two of the animals in my house are named after One Piece characters. So I like it a lot. Yeah, I like One Piece. It's very good.
It's very good. Okay, awesome. Since this is kind of a beginner's guide, what would you say is the core appeal of One Piece? Like, what's unique about it? What makes it so good?
I mean, the funny thing about it is there's not a lot that I would point to in anime that's specifically unique. It's it's a bunch of different characters with disparate powers that overlap, and the characters are really fun and really good and really well realized. Everyone has extensive backstories. Luffy is the most loyal goofball. He's a lot like Goku, right? I mean, he really is.
This is the thing, is playing the opening hours of this game, being an absolute idiot when it comes to One Piece. It is nice just to be like, I know these characters because I know anime. Yeah. It's I can slot everybody into their role pretty well, but I understand there's a lot of nuance there and a lot of history that I don't want to, diminish.
I mean, they do fit into sort of specific anime familiar characters, Right. But I think the thing that makes it so good is it's really well done, right? It's one of the best versions of that sort of a typical anime. And also the world that they exist in is just really opens it up for like anything. Like it's almost like sometimes it kind of feels like the best parts of Star Trek, where like they can go to like a different planet every episode, and it's like interesting, and you learn all about that different planet and the aliens that live there. They kind of pull that off in One Piece, in the sense that it's like they're moving from island to island, and because of the way the world is set up, everyone's really disparate, so all the islands are very different, and there's like animals that only exist on this one island and stuff like that. So it's just a really good platform to place these really interesting characters in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's always feels new and fresh.
No, I know whenever you talk about One Piece on the podcast, people always ask, like, what arc are you on? So the arcs aren't a matter of like islands. It's not like they're stuck on an island for a long period of time. It's kind of episode by episode, island to island.
Sometimes it is, yeah.
Okay. All right, this seems perfect. And I assume that they slowly were like adding more and more people to their crew, or is that pretty early on that you get everybody in there?
It takes a while. There's like the core group that gets added pretty quickly, but like even now I'm like 300 episodes in, and they're adding like the arc that I'm watching right now, Thriller Bark, is about adding the skeleton guy. Like he's about to join their crew.
And that's Brooke?
I'm sure. What's that?
Is that Brooke?
Yes.
Okay.
Brooke. I almost said Brock, but yeah, it's Brooke. Yeah, he's about to join the crew in where I'm at in the anime.
Okay, interesting. All right, but you're not completely caught up, so I guess that makes sense.
No. Yeah, I'm like 600 episodes, so 700 away from being caught up, which is wild.
So One Piece video games. You, I think, were the biggest fan on the planet of the last one, 2019's at least, from One Piece World Seeker. Was it an action adventure?
Like,
what was that
literally, I think my review was like the highest if you go look at OpenCritic. I really liked that game, but it did not resonate with a lot of people.
And what is this, an open world-ish action game?
Open island, right? They land on an island and they gotta figure out what's going on there. And the thing that I liked is you play as Luffy, and he has like the ability to fling himself around this open world. So he like grabs trees and slingshots his way around, and like I thought it was good. I actually was really excited for like a World Seeker 2. Like after I played that, I was like, this is solid, but I bet the sequel's going to be great. But I don't think they're going that direction. I think they're doing this. I think the game you saw is the direction they're taking.
Yeah, the turn-based RPG One Piece Odyssey. The way that they pitched it, they said that there's not been a One Piece RPG since the Game Boy Advance. So it has been a while. Yes, this is a different developer from the last One Piece game, because this is ILCA, ILCA. Which is a Japanese company, which I love. It stands for I Love Computer Art, which is a very good name for a company. But you might know them. They're the developers of Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. They developed those remakes.
God, is it weird that I had no idea that was not made inside of Game Freak? I had no idea. I
think so. I think because they made a big deal out of it. Like I remember Masuda came out, and I think he might have co-directed it back when he was still at Game Freak. But I think in that Pokemon Direct, they explained they're like, hey, Ilka's helping out with this, and it's being directed by such and such. And then you look into the director of that game, the Pokemon game, and it's like, oh, this is a programmer who worked on like the Batman game for the NES. Like, so just ILCA is just like seems like a bunch of old timers, but they're not a very well-known studio. Even, at this preview event, Bandai Namco paid for me to fly out to San Diego to play this game and whatnot. And they had they had a producer from Bandai Namco there, but nobody from ILCA. It wasn't even clear who's directing this game. Like, I'm really a dork for game development, and so I wanted to learn more about ILCA on this trip, and I didn't really get too much. Like, we learned that the game has been in development for 6 years, apparently. One Piece Odyssey here.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. And the game's producer talked about how he's like, yeah, we really wanted to go to ILCA because they know the PS4 quite well, and they know RPGs quite well from their history. And so we came to them about 6 years ago, and I tried digging around. I couldn't figure out what it was. But he's like, there was a director of a big game that they just released, and we started working on this project with him, and he eventually left the project. And I wish he could be here today to see it through and see what we created at the finish line. And so I asked him, like, well, what's that guy's name? He's like, I can't tell you. It's NDA'd. It's like, okay. Like, it seems like it's over 6 years. I'm sure lots of things went sideways. Yeah. And, ILCA had to develop a Pokemon game in the middle of it. I don't know how big they are and whatnot. So the development of the game, I'm still curious about overall. But you are excited for One Piece Odyssey, Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, tentatively, right? Like, there's always a little bit of, like, insecurity about my excitement for licensed anime games.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, it's always tough with a license, but that being said, I think the game looks great from what I've seen. And when it comes to anime adaptations, basically this is what I want. Like RPG stories where you can kind of explore an area with the characters that I like and I'm familiar with. So I'm hopeful for this one. It kind of has Dragon Quest vibes. Optimistically, like from trailers and stuff. You've played it. You can tell me if I'm way off there. But
yeah, I think that's a fine comparison. Yeah. So it's let's see how to frame this in their pitch. It's interesting. I don't know what feedback they were working off of, but in their pitch, they're like, look, it's a turn-based RPG, but we're trying to like redefine RPGs here. We're trying to really get out of the mold a little bit and not just have some classic boring turn-based RPG, which I don't know if I saw too much of that in what I played. It feels kind of just like a conservative, a little bit older style JRPG, which is a genre that I love. And so, they have some more exploration focused stuff where like, okay, you can control a bunch of different people, which is cool. Just on the D-pad, you can swap between so many members of the crew, and they all kind of have different abilities and stuff. And Luffy, you can use him to like stretch his arm and reach new places, right? It's like, okay, here's a little grapple point over here in this dungeon. You can grapple over there, find some treasure, yada, yada, yada. You can break down a wall, all that fun stuff. Don't expect it to be action-packed. Even like the stretchy move of like grabbing onto that grapple point, I was waiting for kind of like a cool fling after you do it. Very much not the case. You grapple onto it, then just like drop straight down. So go into this thing expecting a somewhat conservative-ish old school RPG.
You're more using those abilities just to get from point A to point B.
Right, right. Okay. And it's tough. With the opening of an RPG, it's never the best way to get a good handle on what this game's actually going to be like. But it's a lot of, all right, go to this point and we'll talk for a little bit. Okay, now walk 20 feet and then there's another little cutscene, then walk 20 feet, there's another little cutscene. It's that type of thing in the beginning, at least, Right. And so you want the premise for this bad boy?
Let's hear it.
Okay. Serve it up, Daddy-O. Let's go.
Wow me.
So the basic idea is you are shipwrecked on a island called Waford, W-A-F-O-R-D. It's The game is in Japanese, by the way. It's just subbed for everybody here. Which
do you know if it'll be dubbed or?
I don't know. The fact that it wasn't at this event and it's coming out January 13th, I would imagine it won't be. Do you have preferences on that, Kyle?
I like the dub. Yeah, I think the dub is very good.
Okay. All right.
Funimation dub.
Oh, so you're a fake anime fan. I see how it goes.
Yep. Yeah, hell yeah.
Anyway, so you're shipwrecked on this island, and it starts out with like, okay, you have to go find the crew. Everybody's kind of scattered on this island, and Luffy lost his hat. Who has his hat? All that fun stuff. But then...
Yeah, him and Indiana Jones, they do not like losing their hats.
Is that a
it's very
thing?
Important to them.
Okay,
yeah.
Got it. But then Robin in your crew, she's
the best character.
Is that right? What's her deal? She's also stretchy. She did a lot of moves where like she would shove her hand in the ground and a bunch of hands would come up. I couldn't quite understand her powers.
She can basically make her hands appear anyway, her body parts. So like she can make her hand appear out of that wall or even out of other people's bodies. So that's how she incapacitates enemies sometimes is she'll like a bunch of hands will appear and strangle characters to death. No, I'm just kidding.
That seems all right.
Let's go that far.
But anyway, so she knew that like, oh, this is Waford. That's the legendary island with a light road to heaven. I heard it has a great treasure. And everyone was very excited about this treasure, right? So going around this island trying to figure out what's going on. And it turns out who has Luffy's hat is this younger girl that's on the island. And she's like, oh, they're pirates. And so she like touches everybody on the chest. And then cubes fly out of them. Are cubes a big thing in One Piece in general, or is that just this game?
No, I think that sounds like it's just this game.
Okay, because there's like cubes everywhere.
But the powers in One Piece are insane. Like they're crazy. Like they do the weirdest things. So this feels in line, even though I've never heard of anything like that in One Piece.
Well, it's interesting. So let me get to this. So these cubes fly out everybody. And they're like, oh no, all of our experience. Oh no. And so you started at level 40, and then you kind of get Metroided, and you go back to level 1 and rebuild it back up, right? And they're like, what'd you do? Why'd you do this to us?
That we have Metroided. I know exactly what you mean.
You know how it goes,
Metroided,
right?
Of course.
And it's like, why did you do this? And she's like, well, you're pirates. You said you're pirates, and everybody that comes to the island that are pirates, they're bad. So I wanted to make sure you were knocked back down. But they asked her like, oh, where'd you get your powers? Did you get it from the fruit too? Something like that? What fruits?
The devil fruit, yeah.
Devil fruit gives everybody their powers?
Yeah, so like if you happen to come across a devil fruit in One Piece and eat it, you get a power, but you don't know what it's going to be until you eat it, for the most part. There's a few fruit that they know, but mostly you just eat it and hope for the best.
And that adds more power to you, or you just get like randomized X-Men powers?
You get randomized X-Men powers, yeah.
Can you change
Luffy
it up?
did not become a rubber man until he ate a devil fruit.
Okay, and that's in like episode 1?
Kind of, yeah. No, you kind of drop into the show with Luffy already established, and then you learn about where that all came from later. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So then it seems like the bulk of the game is you are on this island exploring it, trying to uncover the secret treasure and all this stuff. But they're like, well, it's a news story, right? And they have the show's creator. He's involved a little bit, it feels like. A little bit like that Toriyama and Dragon Ball FighterZ thing of like, I don't know, I made Android 21, there you go.
He drew some characters.
Yeah, a little bit. But they're very big on messaging, you know, like, hey, it's great to finally have him involved in this big way. And so it's on this island of Wofford, but then it's like, well, you want to go to some classic sites from the show. And so they have like memories. You're going to be jumping to some classic towns like, you know, Kyle, Alabasta? Is that the name of the town?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's in the desert.
There we go. And then Seven Waters? Is that what it is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
You've watched the show.
I think I know everything I do about One Piece. So you go to locations like that, but you go to them through your memories because it seems like this younger girl on the island wants to experience those towns is, I guess, what is going on there roughly. Okay. So you're, you know, getting all the sites, but still technically, I guess, stranded on this island to tell the story of Wofford and whatnot. What would you most like to know about this game, Kyle? Concerns, questions, all that fun stuff.
I mean, my hope for it in general, like my optimism for it, is that I would like just like a solid JRPG, right? With One Piece characters and One Piece wrapping, you know, because I think the way the stories are told in One Piece, like it would fit well with an RPG, you know. So my question is like, and it's tough to say early on, but like, did you enjoy the RPG mechanics? Did they seem interesting? Was it engaging to, you know, do the battles and stuff like that?
If that's what you want, I think you'll be decently satisfied by this, based again on very early impressions. Not being a One Piece fan, that was kind of the test, right? Is like, okay, can I go into this and just enjoy it as a fan of turn-based RPGs? And I thought it was fine. I mean, from the early on, I mean, it's tough to gauge an RPG from this early on, right? But they try to make the combat interesting by having kind of like a rock, paper, scissors format. Where it's like, okay, there's a bunch of different types. Every enemy, every character you have, all these moves to different types and stuff. So it's like speed, power, and technique, I think. And it's kind of the Fire Emblem rock, paper, scissors, right? Of like, okay, this beats that, but this beats that and whatnot. And so that's how they try and vary up the kind of complexity of what's happening in the battle to find everybody's weaknesses and whatnot there. And the UI in the combat, it's almost like they're trying to take a page out of Persona. Like it's kind of like a stylish, funky looking UI, and it gets a little convoluted. I'm sure I'd get used to it eventually, but it was a little bit like, wait, where am I looking for this? The rock, paper, scissors thing? What's exactly happening here? But you mentioned it earlier. I think the game looks really good. I think it looks excellent. And also, it's just, the moves are really fun. You know, starting out in the game, you have so many different moves, so it's very fun before you get Metroid just to jump around and see everybody's different moves. Like, what? Usopp? Is that how you say his name?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so he's got a golden pound move where he just takes out like a gigantic hammer and beats on people and stuff. And so I think that stuff is fun to see, even not as a fan. So I imagine as a fan, it's like, oh my God, it's so cool seeing all these different moves jump out, right?
And so do you have like is it like typical JRPG party? Like you have the crew and everyone picks their moves and they have their own types because of their own weird abilities and stuff like that? Yeah,
but it's a little bit like, I don't know, Final Fantasy X is the best reference, but you can swap out between everybody in the battle as well. So you can be like, okay, in the middle of this battle, we don't have to rearrange the party. We can just throw somebody else in there if they have this strength for this enemy, yada, yada, yada. Can you explain this little guy, Chopper? He is a little buddy and then he turns into a big buff deer with muscles?
Yeah, well, first thing you gotta know about Chopper is it's Jamie Lee Curtis's favorite character. There's dozens of interviews of her talking about how much she loves Chopper, which is so weird to me.
Well, it's interesting because she's constantly being chased by a chopper. Ree. I don't know. He doesn't really have an axe. Anyways.
So he was just a deer. And he just ate a devil fruit as a deer.
That's fun.
He ate the human fruit. So it turned him into like an animal human hybrid. And then he can change forms. Yeah. I don't know what you're confused about. It all makes a lot of sense.
No, I liked him. It's just the first time he turned into a buff deer, I was like, oh, I thought he was just the cute little guy anime trope. Okay, now, all right, this is shifting into something else entirely.
Well, he's fun because he can be all those things. Oh, and he's like a very skilled doctor, is the other thing about him. He trained with the best.
So that explains he's the medic, of course.
Yes.
That's fun. I love that they have a doctor on the show. I mean, I guess that's kind of like a Star Trek role, right?
Yeah, well, it's funny because, I mean, that's the whole thing. Like, Luffy's trying to build a crew of, like, specific people, right? He needed a doctor, he needed a navigator, he needed a chef. Brook is a musician, so he wanted a singer. You know what I mean? Like,
that's
they all,
fun.
like, it's not just, like, people he found. He's like, I need a chef. I got to try to find the best chef, you know?
Right. Frankie. He's like a Frankenstein take? What's his deal?
So he did not eat a devil fruit.
Okay.
He just got severely injured when he was young and rebuilt his body. So he's mostly robot. He's funny because, like, in general, there's not a lot of technology in One Piece. You know, it's like it takes place during a sort of a pirate age. But, like, he can build any machine or robot that you want. He's, like, augmented his body to be partially robot. And they don't really spend a lot of time on, like, how come his technology is so much more advanced than everybody else's in the world? Perfect.
Love it. Let's see. Zoro shows up at a certain point, and Sanji doesn't like it. Is that a classic rivalry? Is it like a love interest thing? Because he's in love with Nami? Sanji's in love with Nami? Is that the idea?
Sanji's in love with everybody, and he just doesn't like Zoro. There's no triangle or anything like that. He just doesn't get along with Zoro.
Oh, okay.
Their personalities conflict.
And he calls him Moss Head a bunch.
Yeah, that's his insult to him because he has green hair.
Oh, okay. But this is a good show, you're saying.
Yeah, it's a great show.
No, I know. I can't diminish these great roles. It was a little bit of a shock jumping into this game, and I know it's like, you know, started in the 90s and whatnot, but jumping into this, I was like, Nami, huh? All right, going with the Nami design, everybody, of just like the bustiest woman you've ever seen in your life and like those skin tight thing. But, you know,
she did not start that way. She was a normal shaped woman when she was young, but as she's gotten older over the course of the show, she's grown up.
What's her power?
She doesn't have one. Not everyone on the ship has eaten devil fruit. So
what?
Sanji
Why
the
not?
cook, because it's kind of dangerous. Oh, that's the other thing about eating devil fruit, Ben Hansen. That's crucial, very important.
Yeah.
Is once you eat the devil fruit, you cannot swim in the ocean.
Ooh, that's fun. Okay.
Yeah, so like the ocean rejects you because you're like a crime against nature. So like if any of the devil fruit users fall in the water, they just sink. Like they can't move. So yeah, some of the crew like has not eaten devil fruit and doesn't want to, frankly, because they like being able to swim. And there's also the danger of like eating a devil fruit and it like just being some terrible power, you know, that you didn't want.
Does that happen to like bad people? It's just like kind of like taking acid, like you don't know which way it's going to go.
Kind of. It's never like truly terrible, but it is dangerous. Like the fun one, I mean, they're all fun, but like Brook the skeleton,
yeah,
he ate a devil fruit and nothing happened. Like he was like, oh, I guess I just ate a dud, and then he died. And it turned out he had eaten a fruit that like let him live a second life.
That's cool. Okay.
So he didn't know what his devil fruit did. It just he couldn't swim anymore in the ocean, but like he didn't know what it did until he died, and then he like came back as a skeleton. So he has one extra life basically, but he can still die.
That's a fun idea.
Yeah.
There's kind of like a ping you can do in the environment, and it's called observation hockey, like HAKI.
Okay.
Is that from the show or anything?
Yeah, that's like the closest equivalent is like kind of it's like kind of like Super Saiyan almost a little bit. It's like a hockey is like extra abilities and like powering up and stuff like that.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. It of what they're going for, and it's like, is a little bit Yakuza like a dragon? Could it kind of draft off that momentum, perhaps?
Right.
Obviously with Bandai Namco, it's like there's some Tales influence there as well. It does. The game has the same composer as Golden Sun, Kyle. You'll be happy to learn.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I wonder if this would be a tough question for you to answer, but I wonder if it has just the One Piece music from the anime in it.
I don't know.
Like if they have different themes and stuff.
Yeah, sorry, I can't tell you. It's they say it's like 30 to 40 hours to finish. If you do the side stuff, they say ballpark in 60 hours for how long this thing is overall.
That sounds reasonable. I'm glad it's not hitting Persona levels, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's cool. I'm with you that like it's nice just to have the game where you get to just live in this world for a while and it's not just an action game. You know, like I think we both really enjoyed Dragon Ball Kakarot with all its faults, but it's like, oh, it's just cool to like get to run around and live in that world and interact with those characters in that type of way.
Yeah, did you go on the ship at all? Because like that would be a big like thrill, would just to be able to walk around the ship. Because obviously, you know, they spend a lot of time on the ship, and you know the ship very well.
Is a ship called Sunny?
Yeah, the Going Sunny, I think.
Okay.
No. I could be wrong, but that's embarrassing. I don't know the exact name.
That is embarrassing. You should know that I got some bad news. This ship, it's shipwrecked. It crashed into the island, Kyle. They
couldn't fix it.
Maybe they'll get there eventually and fix the ship in some way. I'd be surprised if they didn't eventually get off the island in some way. But no, you are stranded on the beach starting out on Wofford Island. So there's none of that. Also,
but it's not a place you can go to and like stay.
Not in the first 3 hours at least. No.
Bummer.
Yeah. The also like the first area you explore is called King Kong Garden, and there's just like a giant monkey that's kidnapped Nami. And I was like, what? You can just call it King Kong? Like, didn't Nintendo learn, like, don't mess with Universal when it comes to the naming of that? I thought it was really bold.
Well, they did win that, right? Like,
so now it's game on for King Kong?
I guess. That's interesting. We'll see if that changes by the time the game comes out.
Yeah, I don't know. We're getting down to the wire here.
That's true.
So yeah, I think overall I had a fine time with it. I don't think it's going to be like, oh, this is an RPG that you got to play even if you don't like one piece. But I mean, that's like the highest levels. That's tough to break through. I mean, how many anime games have broke through? Maybe Dragon Ball FighterZ. Like even if you don't like fighters, you'd still enjoy that. I don't know what other ones are really pop that hard.
Yeah, that would be tough to see. I don't know. I mean, nothing. FighterZ was the only one that came to mind where it was like, people who like fighting games who don't know anything about Dragon Ball, I think look at that and admire it.
Right.
But,
right.
Yeah. I don't know about anything else.
I mean, if you're a One Piece fan and you like turn-based games, I think you're going to have a solid time. I'd be surprised if it's anybody's game of the year when it comes out. But also, it's a good time for it to come out. January 13th. That's like perfect JRPG time, I think. Just after you finish the rush of trying to catch up on everything and this year.
Gives you the whole year to have it on your backlog.
Exactly.
That one I will certainly play right away. I'm excited for that.
Okay. Can I tell you the absurd thing about this whole preview event, Kyle?
Let's hear it.
We have a whole separate video just about this, but we played the game on a ship that's docked at San Diego, but like it was still like moving a little bit. It's like, I get it. It's a whole pirate theme. You got to do it. But this is a ship that was built in 1863. So it was a very unique environment. And like, I don't know, I was having an out-of-body experience. It was just so surreal to be like sitting in the captain's quarters of this ship from 1863. And it's a bunch of folks asking, you know, about DLC plans for One Piece Odyssey to this Japanese developer. And I was like, this is too weird. Like, men have died here, everybody. This is so bizarre. So, and then, you know, it's just absurd because then they start playing music and serving drinks at a certain point, and it's like just hip hop blasting on this ship from 1863. They're like, hey, we've got the Odyssey drink. Come have some, everybody. It's like, this is just the weirdest fusion of things. But, you know, I'm sure from their vantage point, it's like, One Piece, ships. All right, let's find the oldest ship where we can possibly hook up some TVs in the bowels of this ship.
Well, that was my next question, is how do they have power on that ship? They just got, I'm curious how that works.
It's like it's the devil fruit, actually. The ship swallowed one. No, it's a museum, you know, the ship is trying to do a museum and whatnot. I guess it doesn't sail anymore and whatnot, but if you're really into old ships, check out the other video from MinMax that's up on our YouTube channel, because I promise it'll be everything you could ever hope for and more. Kyle, this is the second preview trip that we've gone on with MinMax. COVID obviously put a damper on that for a long time, but the first one was like Mario and Rabbids. And then it was nice to go out to this one and whatnot. I have so much leftover anxiety from like Game Informer cover trips. When going on these preview trips, I get so stressed out. I feel like I need to do so much. I need to nail this. I need to cover everything to make so much content. I just have this motivating energy inside of me because I'm so used to being like, you know, one of 2 or maybe 3 people going on a Game Informer cover story trip back when, you know, I was at Game Informer. And it's so weird just to realize like, okay, no, this is a group preview event. Like no one's looking at you at this event. PR is not going to be fully dialed in on you for several days like they are on those cover story trips. But
just you're comparing it to the trips where it's like, yeah, I see what you're saying. Like we were there, or not necessarily we, but mostly you, like as like an exclusive, we're the only sort of outlet there kind of situation. Yeah.
And it was just very intense. And now to go to these things, you forget like, oh, my brain remembers the paths of this anxiety of trying to make sure we're getting the most of these things. It's like, it's a different tempo and you're not the star of the show. And it's a nice thing just to like sit back on this pirate ship and just let it all flow by you, man.
Captain's quarters.
That's it.
People died, apparently.
So many people died. It's a murder ship, everybody. So you're going to play this thing. I mean, you're probably going to review it for Game Informer, if I had to guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, probably. Yeah, I make no assumptions, but... Probably.
How would you describe the One Piece arc of fandom? Is it still increasing? Why does it feel like more and more people are talking about it in the last couple of years?
It's a good question. I mean, it's very popular in Japan. The reason that it has been going forever is because people really like it. Like my understanding, it is if not the most popular, like one of the most popular animes, manga in Japan. It has been since its inception. As far as like why it's suddenly kind of cresting in America, because I'm part of that too. Like I started kind of really truly watching it right before World Seeker came out because I thought World Seeker looked cool. I don't know. I think people are just kind of discovering it. Anime is just getting more and more popular as like this sort of niche subgenre of like entertainment. And so you start to look into like a little recognizable. Like if you're looking at anime to watch, you're like, okay, Naruto, Dragon Ball. I think I've seen that One Piece one, and it's on Netflix as well, which helps.
Ooh, okay. Well, that's the answer then. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's been there for a while, but honestly, you're right. Maybe that is the answer. I think the first like 200 episodes are on Netflix.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you recommend people jump in?
Yeah, I mean, it's like the joke to me is always like, oh, it's nothing. It's like it's not that big a commitment to watch 1,000 episodes of an anime, but like, I mean, the way I've been approaching it is like, I watch a bit of it, I get really into it, and I'm like watching a lot, and then like a storyline sort of ends, has a conclusion, and then I take a break, and then maybe I'll get back to it at some point later, and then I get into it again. I have these crests, and waves of like getting into it and really enjoying it, and like, it's kind of nice to just have this sort of ongoing story that has a lot there available for you to watch, and it's all like solid. Like there's one arc recently that I kind of didn't love.
Get specific. What was it?
The one, see, I don't even know the names. They're on an island in the sky something. Skypiea. That's what it is. The Skypiea arc.
Okay.
But then the arc right after that was one of the best in the show. Like it was like one of my favorites. Like I teared up watching the end of that arc,
Yeah.
So because you learn all about Robin and stuff. So, but it's a good show. I mean, you should watch it. It's good.
Why is Robin the best?
I just like her. Like
she seems classy.
She's the most cool and collected. Her backstory is really interesting. She's also like genuinely brilliant. Like she is like far and away the smartest crew member. She's like, because she's an archaeologist who studies a lot of things. Her power is like weird. And she's just, it's so funny. There was like the arc I'm watching now. They come across a ghost ship, where they meet the skeleton guy, and there's this shot of the whole crew reacting to seeing this skeleton guy, and everyone's freaking out in full anime style, exaggerated facial expressions and stuff. And Robin is just sitting there with her arms crossed, like, oh, okay, skeleton, cool. Like, I just love how she's just like goes like, whatever, we'll figure it out. It's cool, you guys, don't worry about it.
That's good. I know Anna is really into the manga, but you haven't journeyed into the manga realm.
No. I mean, I don't think it's too different from the anime.
Okay.
I don't think they separate too much, but I mean, that's its own beast, right? I mean, thousands of issues there,
Yeah. All right, there it is, everybody. One Piece Odyssey. Coming out January 13th. Not coming out on Switch, but coming out on next gen stuff and coming out on PC. I think it's releasing on PC like the 12th or something funky like that even. But
Do you think you will play it as a JRPG person?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Be honest.
So I don't know. I'm glad.
Sometimes a JRPG will click with you. I think you once described, I think it was the Fire Emblem Persona Wii U JRPG.
Oh, Sharp FE, yeah.
Yeah, I remember you were like, "Hey, wouldn't it be funny if I just played that game? Like, would that be hilarious if I just played that full game?"
Tokyo Mirage Session. I could
see you doing that with other weird random JRPGs. It's like, wouldn't that be that be funny if I played One Piece Odyssey?
I think I'm good for like 2 JRPGs a year. You know, it was my favorite genre growing up, and now it's like I'm good for 2, but I still think it would be funny to play through all of Tokyo Mirage Session. Just do the deepest dive on that. I mean, I think it kind of would be. All right, Kyle, thanks for joining me. Hey, look forward to a bunch of stuff from MinMax. We have our big Game of the Year debates coming up on the MinMax Show, which is our flagship podcast. Speaking of ships, so that's going to be airing on the 15th and the 22nd and the 29th of MinMax's YouTube channel, and also on the MinMax Show podcast, which is our big podcast, which is available for free on your favorite podcast app. So you can check that out if you want to hear us debate Game of the Year. Our full debates will be those episodes on the 22nd and 29th, and we'll have our special awards show on the 15th. Looking forward to that nonsense, Kyle?
Damn. Yeah, they're always fun. They're
so
like
too.
A little stressful, but like always some of my favorite conversations of the year.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. I feel like last year we all made a pact not to get pissy, and then we still kind of got a little pissy. And so like, I don't know, how do you message that at the start of the recording, everyone? Like, just everyone be cool. We don't hate each other, right? We're fine.
Well, I think I'm getting personally good at it because I've done it for the last 10 years at this point, where like you kind of got to go in and be like, maybe you have a couple that you're passionate about that you want to make sure get on the list.
Yep.
But you don't really need to get heated about stuff that like ultimately you don't really care about.
Yeah, and I think the part that I have trouble with is like, I just think of, I have a tough time, you know, because we've been doing it for several years here at MinMax now, and it's like trying to be consistent with like what. Here's the thing specifically that I'm talking about is like sandbagging people's opinions. Like, how much, if you didn't like the game, does that drop it down the list if somebody else is really into the game? And it's like a very tough thing to quantify in the sense of like, well, our list is just measuring how much we love these games this year collectively as a group. And so it's like, you can sandbag a game if it is like your genre, you enjoyed other entries in the series, and then you tried this one and you're like, I don't like this. But I worry about this, you know, I don't want a situation where it's like, I played Norco for 20 minutes and I thought it was boring. So therefore, Jacob Geller, your passion's diminished, you know? And so like, it's tough to know when you can factor in, when you can sandbag something and when you can't.
To the point where I'm almost trying to not even play games that I'm fairly confident I won't like.
Right.
If that makes sense. Because otherwise it's going to make me come in with my negative opinion, which is like, how helpful is that ultimately?
Right.
If someone's really into a game.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. I didn't like it. Okay, cool. But I always just think back to like, you know, we gave Kentucky Route Zero number 2 on our list back in 2020. I think that was because Surreal was like, it's one of my favorite games of all time. And it's like, well, I played through it and it did 0 for me, just like that Kentucky Route. But it's like, okay, you got to respect it. All right, that's a tangent, everybody. One Piece Odyssey coming out in January if you're interested in such things. All right, thanks so much for watching, everybody. We'll be back in the future on this channel. We live here. Bye, everybody. If you thought, hey, this video wasn't bad, well, there's a whole lot more like it on MinMax's YouTube channel. Please help us out by subscribing to our channel and checking out the MinMax Show podcast, also available on your favorite podcast app, the best, most thorough discussion about games on the internet with the deepest dive, our monthly community trivia show with prizes called Trivia Tower, and a whole lot more. Thanks so much for your support, everybody. All you gotta do is click that subscribe button. We'd really appreciate it.